were children when the world first fell in love with them. Before they understood contracts, they understood cameras. Before they understood pressure, they understood applause. Millions of us grew up watching them. We quoted their lines. We put their posters on our walls. We watched their movies again and again.
That's me. Hi, I'm Ashley, and I'm here to answer your letters. Our first letter comes from Tracy Sullivan of Yakima, Washington.
But while we were enjoying their performances, they were growing up in front of the entire world. This is the story of child stars who couldn't escape fame. Stars who found success very early in life, faced overwhelming pressure as teenagers, and entered adulthood carrying expectations that never really disappeared. Some rebuilt their lives. Some struggled in public. Some became cautionary tales. But all of them share one powerful truth. Childhood fame changes everything. The world of child stardom. In the 1980s and 1990s, family sitcoms ruled television. In the 2000s, Disney Channel and teen movies created global young celebrities. Studios realized something important. Children could become massive stars. But child actors were not just performers. They were brands. They were marketing machines. Their faces sold movie tickets, lunchboxes, soundtracks, and TV ratings. The problem? Childhood is supposed to be messy. It's supposed to be private. It's supposed to be a time to make mistakes quietly. But for these stars, every mistake was public. Let's begin. Macaulay Culkin. Macaulay Culkin became one of the most famous children in the world at just 10 years old. When Home Alone was released in 1990, it became a global sensation. He wasn't just a child actor. He was the child actor of the decade. His face became a holiday tradition. His scream pose became iconic. By age 12, he was earning millions of dollars per movie. But behind the scenes, pressure was building. His parents began fighting publicly over control of his money. Court battles followed. Headlines focused less on his talent and more on his family drama. Instead of enjoying his teenage years, Macaulay Culkin found himself in the middle of legal chaos. At just 14 years old, he stepped away from acting completely. He walked away from Hollywood. But Hollywood didn't walk away from him. As he grew older, tabloids followed him. Photos of him looking thinner sparked rumors. Every public appearance became a story. It didn't matter that he wasn't acting anymore. He was still the kid from Home Alone. Years later, he slowly returned to creative work on his own terms. Smaller projects, comedy, writing, a quieter life. But even today, when people see him, they don't see a man in his 40s. They see Kevin McAllister. And that is the complicated part of childhood fame. The world freezes you in time. Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan was once considered one of Hollywood's brightest young talents. She starred in The Parent Trap at just 11 years old and impressed everyone with her performance. As she entered her teenage years, she became a household name with films like Freaky Friday and Mean Girls. By 19, she was everywhere, red carpets, interviews, magazine covers. But growing up under that spotlight came with intense pressure. As she transitioned into adulthood, paparazzi followed her constantly. Nights out became front-page news. Personal relationships became public drama. Legal troubles and rehab visits were photographed and broadcast worldwide. The same media that once praised her talent now focused on her struggles. Opportunities slowly disappeared. Directors hesitated to cast her. The headlines became louder than her performances. Eventually, Lindsay Lohan stepped away from Hollywood and moved overseas to escape the constant attention. In recent years, she has begun rebuilding her career with new projects and a calmer public image. But the memory of her tabloid years still follows her. Her story shows how quickly the industry can lift someone up, and how quickly it can turn. Amanda Bynes. Amanda Bynes was one of Nickelodeon's biggest young stars. The Amanda Show made her famous before she was 16. She had natural comedic timing and easily transitioned into teen movies like She's the Man. For a while, her career seemed stable and promising. Then, in her early 20s, her public behavior changed. Social media posts became confusing and alarming. There were incidents with law enforcement. Headlines grew more dramatic. Instead of privacy during what appeared to be serious mental health challenges, the world watched in real time. Amanda Bynes was placed under a conservatorship that lasted nearly 10 years. During that time, she stepped away from acting completely. When the conservatorship ended, she expressed interest in living quietly, focusing on education and personal growth. But the internet never forgets. For many people, her name still brings back those chaotic headlines instead of her talent. That is the danger of growing up in the digital age. Your hardest moments become permanent. The pressure of growing up publicly. By this point, a pattern is clear. These stars experienced success before they experienced adulthood. They worked long hours as children. They carried financial responsibility. They were surrounded by adults making business decisions. But emotionally, they were still kids. And when adolescence hit, when identity shifts naturally happen, the public didn't adjust. Instead of being allowed to change quietly, they were judged loudly. The pressure to stay lovable. The pressure to stay profitable. The pressure to stay perfect. For many child stars, the hardest role they ever played was simply growing up. Britney Spears. Britney Spears began her career as a child performer on the Mickey Mouse Club. By the time she was 17, she had become one of the biggest pop stars in the world. Baby One More Time wasn't just a hit song. It was a global phenomenon. She was young, talented, and suddenly under constant surveillance. Her relationships were analyzed. Her outfits were criticized. Her body was discussed. When she became a mother, the scrutiny intensified. In 2007, during a very public breakdown, paparazzi surrounded her constantly. Instead of space and support, she received flashing cameras. Soon after, a conservatorship was established that controlled her finances and many aspects of her life for 13 years. The world watched her grow up and then watched her struggle. Years later, the hashtag Free Britney movement sparked conversations about control, autonomy, and how the media treats young women in the spotlight. Britney Spears became one of the clearest examples of how childhood fame can create a life that feels impossible to escape. Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore became famous at just 7 years old in E.T. She was charming, funny, and unforgettable. But her exposure to adult Hollywood life began too early. By her early teens, she was struggling with addiction. At 14, she entered rehab. Her childhood had been anything but normal. However, Drew Barrymore's story includes reinvention. She legally separated from her parents as a teenager and slowly rebuilt her career. Through independent films and later romantic comedies, she reshaped her image. Eventually, she became a producer and talk show host. She speaks openly about her chaotic childhood now, not with bitterness, but with honesty. Her success today does not erase the difficulties she faced growing up too fast, but it does show that recovery is possible. Corey Feldman was one of the most recognizable young actors of the 1980s. He starred in The Goonies, Stand By Me, and The Lost Boys. He was part of what many called the golden generation of young Hollywood. But adulthood did not bring the same success. He struggled with substance abuse and later spoke publicly about abuse within the industry during his childhood. His adult career never reached the heights of his early fame. Instead, he became a voice calling out systemic problems in Hollywood, warning others about the dangers young performers can face. His story reminds us that the risks of child stardom are not new. They have existed for decades. Judy Garland. Long before social media, Judy Garland experienced the dark side of child fame. As a teenager in The Wizard of Oz, she became one of the most beloved stars of her generation. But the studio system controlled nearly every part of her life. Her weight, her schedule, even her medication. She worked exhausting hours. She was given pills to stay awake and pills to sleep. Her adulthood was marked by financial struggles, addiction, and emotional exhaustion. She died at just 47 years old. Her story is one of the earliest examples of how the entertainment industry can shape and sometimes damage a young life. Final reflection. When we look at these stories together, Macaulay Culkin, Lindsay Lohan, Amanda Bynes, Britney Spears, Drew Barrymore, Corey Feldman, Judy Garland, a clear pattern appears. Early fame brings attention. Attention brings pressure. Pressure, without protection, brings consequences. These were not just celebrities. They were children. They learned scripts before they learned who they were. They faced criticism before they built confidence. They were expected to remain lovable while still trying to understand themselves. Some survived and rebuilt. Some are still rebuilding. Some paid the highest price. Fame can open doors, but when it arrives too early, it can also lock you into an identity that is impossible to outgrow. We still rewatch their movies. We still sing their songs. We still feel nostalgia when we see their childhood performances. But behind every iconic role was a real child navigating adult expectations. Maybe the next time we see a new young star rising fast, we'll remember these stories. Because childhood should be a chapter, not a lifelong label. If you grew up watching any of these stars, which story affected you the most? And which child star's journey should we explore next? In Hollywood, the spotlight shines bright. But for some child stars, it never truly turns off.